Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Built by Sam and welcome back to part 4 of the bathroom build here in my shop. So if you notice, we got a door going into the bathroom. I was able to get that in the other day. So that's installed. Obviously nothing's really finished on the interior here, but I did at least frame out the shower opening. So there's the curb for the shower, the wall. Still got to put some block hanging up there. The rest of the roof sheathing got installed. I finished sheeting the gable end, put in a few studs there up on the gable opening. I did go around the room and screw all the bottom plates down. I had some extra like 4.5 inch GRKs, so I threw those in. And that's about it. I got the roof squared up. I had to trim back some of the metal on the outside. But for the most part, didn't get a ton done over the last week or so. But we are moving forward. So on the outside here, I did just get some synthetic roof paper down to keep the roof dry up there. Got all the perimeter sealed up real good along the base. Give you a look at the gable opening there. And everything's basically it. I had to trim a little bit of the metal there to get the roof to square up, but everything fit just perfect. So for tonight's goal, I don't have a ton of time, it's already getting late, but my plan is at least I want to get my house wrap on this thing to get it protected, and we'll see if we can get this window put in place. And if we can get that accomplished tonight, I think we'll be in good shape. So let's get moving. So I do want to leave a little extra on the right here to be able to wrap onto the existing building. So we'll tuck that in afterwards, but I'm just going to flush it out with the top of the wall sheathing right now. And if you guys never use this Block-It house wrap, I much prefer it over Tyvek any day. It's got a very nice, almost stretchiness to it. So it allows you to be able to make it a much tighter fit and keep it much neater than if it was your standard Tyvek wrap or woven house wraps. And it's got a nice feel to it too. If you've ever been working on a project that has Tyvek and it's windy outside and it's not tight and it's flapping in the wind, it's enough to drive you crazy. This stuff, it's just much easier to work with. And then when I was originally building the barn, I had used this for the first time. And I was amazed at how well it held up on the exterior of the barn, because it was a little while before I had the steel siding up. And I just had this wrapped around there. And we had windstorms and rainstorms and never had a problem with it, never tore. Didn't fade in the sun. And I'm a firm believer in always hanging your house wrap the proper way. Don't put it upside down. It just makes you look like a hack when your writing is upside down, or you got one sheet going this way or one piece the other way. Try to get them all the same way. I know it doesn't affect anything. It doesn't mean anything other than it just shows you care a little bit more when you're building something. So the first step for the window install is we're gonna cut the house wrap out of the window opening, but we don't want to just cut it out as a square. We're gonna go in the corner, find the corner, slice it to the opposite corner. Do the same thing the other way. So now we got it where it wraps over the jam. So then we just want to snug these up, staple them in there. Prepping the window opening, it's kind of a multi-step process here where we got to think of it all as shingles, and you're going to start at the bottom and work your way up. So as you tape the opening, tape the sill, tape the window flange, everything that is taped, the next layer of tape would be below it. I mean, tape is pretty good, but you don't ever really want to have it where a piece lower than it is on top of it, where water could get, if it ever started to peel away, it could get down behind that layer of tape. You always want it to be shingled to where the water runs over and continues to run over whether the tape starts to peel away or not. If it's behind it, it can't go up and over it. If it's in front of it and it peels open, water can go down inside there and it can channel it in there. So they make a million different tapes for this. This is probably not the best one. It's not the worst one. They make some really nice stretchable tape that works really well in these corners. I just didn't feel like buying a whole roll of tape for one little window opening. So all we're going to do to start is we're going to take a piece of tape like this in the corner, stick it on here, and then we're going to try to stretch this in the best we can. And this tape doesn't stretch super well. Actually, I might grab a different piece of tape for this first. So I wasn't super thrilled on how that tape was stretching. I do have just a tiny bit left of the force field tape here. So we're gonna do the same thing. We're just gonna cut maybe a 4 or 5 inch piece here. Start in the corner, have it go about an inch over the corner, and then you can take your finger and stretch this in and lay it down in there. So now you created a kind of a sealed corner right in that spot right there. Stretch it down. Okay. The next thing we're gonna do, so we're just gonna run one across the bottom here. Having it maybe only about 3/4 of an inch, ½ inch above the bottom of the sill. And again, we'll fold this over. We'll take our other silver tape here, and we'll leave enough to go maybe 6 inches up each side. So this here will go basically half on the sill and half off of it. Try to get it tight down in that corner. Start in the middle here. This tape doesn't stretch very well at all because it's got like fibers running through it. So we will have to cut the corners like that. Stretch her down. Alright, so now we'll put another row in. We want to cover the full bottom sill that's all the way to the inside. And the whole point is when we cut this sill, we cut the tops of these studs underneath here on a 2.5 degree pitch. And that allowed the sill to have a slight pitch outward, so any water comes in will come down under the window and run out the bottom. So now you can see we started here, second layer, third layer, and actually underneath all that was our corner layers. So now the water, if any water gets behind this window, ends up in the sill, it can run out and run down the wall, and it's not going to catch on any of these seams because they're all shingled the proper way. And the way these corners worked out, by putting this first layer in here and lapping the corner like we did, we kind of went across this corner. We folded that down, stretched it in there. Now when we put this on top and cut it, this yellow tape's actually about an inch in across this corner, stretched in there. And now this tape is stuck to that. So you now have a water barrier all the way out and down. Even though this tape's cut on the corner like this, it's protected because this is sealed to the yellow tape that's stretched across the corner and down into it. So, like I said, there's better ways to do it than this. This is kind of, I'd say, doing it the best we can with the materials we have to work with. This tape stretches pretty well. This tape doesn't stretch very well, but this tape sticks extremely well, and it just creates a really good barrier. So this is all that you want to tape at this point until the window goes in, because we don't want to trap any water. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set these two shims in the center. They're not going to stay here. They're just going to be here to set the window. We'll get it plumbed up, leveled up. We'll tack it in place. Once it's secured, we can take those out, but that at least give us something to center it top to bottom. The other thing we want to do is we want to try to get the nailing flange behind the house wrap. So we're just going to cut these top corners back slightly, about 1.25 inches or so, 1.5 inches, and we can just lift that up and slide the window up there. Then the last thing we want to do before we put it up there is just put a bead of sealant just down each side, like so. And we also want one across the top. Make sure we connect these corners. We're just going to secure it with some roofing nails. So we'll just grab a couple of them. I don't have my tool belt on, but it's okay. So we'll set it on the shims. So we made those marks on the right and left. You see we got to go over a little bit. Right about there. And then stick a level on the side. Top's got to go over. Okay. It's pretty good. So we'll tack it first. Just put a nail on this bottom. Here. There you go. If you guys noticed, I applied the sealant up the sides, across the top, down the side, but I did not seal the bottom. And I intentionally didn't do that because any water, if it was to get behind here somehow or leak through the window or something, and it did get through the jamb, it can come out the bottom here. If you seal this up, then you're going to trap it and you'll have water pooling behind your window. Obviously that's not good. Okay, now that we got everything nailed off pretty well, what we're going to do is, the sealant we put up here, we're going to push the house wrap into that real well, seal up that top flange, and then we're going to go ahead and cut the house wrap about halfway onto the nail flange. Probably a little more than that. Okay. So now what you do is you always tape your sides first. So we don't want to tape the top now because it needs a shingle lap over the sides. So we'll do the sides and we'll go maybe 3 inches above the window and 3 or 4 inches below. So you just want to make sure you're not higher than what your tape across the top is going to be. So you can go a little ways over it like that. Make sure we cover up that cut we did in the corner there real good. We'll peel this down. Get right into the corner of the window. The flange there. Press it in real nice. Peel the outside. That's it, guys. So you always end with the top. The top's lapped over the sides. Water can come down, run all the way down. If water gets behind the window, it can come out the bottom of the window here, because this is not sealed down here. You never want to tape this bottom. You can end up with a whole bunch of water pooling in there. So that's basically it. Now we can go on the inside. We'll foam it in. That'll be sure to lock everything in place. We'll clean up our mess. We'll probably pull these out of here now. See how that gave us our little gap here that we can foam all this in nicely. Seal it up. All right, so now we can foam around the inside. I know I've told you guys before, but you guys got to quit using the one-time use spray foam cans. The guns and buying it like this is just so much better. It lasts so much longer. I can put this in the cabinet for months on end and just scrape a little bit of foam off the tip of it, and it's good to go again. So I'm using the Loctite brand window and door foam. And this stuff seals up well, but it doesn't overly expand to where it's going to cause issues with the window. So we're going to get going with what we need to do to get this metal roof on this thing. So we already have the underlayment up here. It's not always required. If you're doing a metal roof, a lot of times you don't even have OSB. You're just going right over top of your roof purlings. On like a pole building especially, you know, you got 2x4s on the flat, sometimes vertical depending on your truss spacing. But I went ahead and sheeted this roof, and I did put an underlayment on it. So now, first thing we need to do is start with the drip edge. So like we were talking, you know, everything's got to be shingled, just like kind of how we went around the window. Whereas you want everything to always be lapped over top of the thing below it. So just in case water ever gets through the metal, it ends up on the underlayment. The underlayment's on top of the drip edge. The drip edge is going to be on top of the fascia. So everything is going to always allow the water to run out and over. If I was to put this on top of the underlayment, if water happened to get through the metal or condensates underneath here, it's going to run down. It's going to get underneath this drip edge, work its way down, and probably end up underneath the fascia and get into the wood here, end up rotting out the wood and cause some problems. So what we'll do first is we'll pull this back. On the end here, I did cut this back with about a 2-inch overhang and put a 90-degree bend on it and lapped it over. And that way, as my rake trim comes down and covers this, you don't have this raw edge where there'd be a gap there. If I would have just cut that off, there'd be a chance where there wasn't any material on that corner there. So by putting a little return on it, that way when the rake comes down, this looks like a nice clean transition there. So the other thing that we got to really pay a lot of attention to is anytime you have a wall like this intersecting into a roof, this is almost always where you're going to have water intrusion. And if you ever to pull a building apart later down the road, you'll see that there was water got behind in this corner here and rotted out the wood or got the wood moldy or whatnot. So these are a little tricky, and the best way about going about them is going to be, we put a little slot in here. I made this little kick-out flashing. So what's going to happen is, before we put this, the drip edge is going to go first. Before we do that, we'll put a good thick bead of roof sealant in there, slide this in, then this will go in behind here, like this. And this hangs about 2 inches past the roof. Okay. Then your underlayment go on top of all that. We'll tuck that in behind here. And that way, once the roofing goes on here, any water that comes down this roof is going to get kicked away from the wall into the gutter and not try to end up going down behind the wall. So this little kickout flashing is super important. Alright, so we're going to put some sealant in here. And this, it's called Through the Roof by Sashco. I'm a huge fan of all Sashco products to begin with, but this stuff just works great. It holds up long term. I've pulled stuff apart, you know, a couple years after installing it, and it's still flexible. It's not all dried out like some stuff you use on a roof. So this stuff does work really well. And surprisingly enough, you got to get this stuff at Lowe's if you're going to buy it from like a big box store. Home Depot, Menards, they don't sell Sashco products, at least not around me, they don't. And the only one that does is Lowe's, and I'm not a huge fan of Lowe's. It's just, I don't know, to me it seems more homeowner based than it is the products I feel like I need. But they do have their full line of Sashco products, so Big Stretch, Lexel, Through the Roof, it all works really well. So alright, so all we did was just fill this void here. Just gonna give it something for that drip edge to slide into. And the drip edge is gonna be the first thing. So we're gonna put that down. And we're gonna slide it right into that bead of goop we put there. Make sure our lap is good. We'll just start in the center here, and we're gonna throw some roofing nails. Here. We don't gotta get crazy because the bottom row of the steel roofing is gonna get screwed anyways. So this is more or less just to get it in place, make sure it stays here. Put one over here, and this is gonna have enough movement to it to where we can tuck our fascia up behind here when we go to do the soffits and fascias. And when you start doing any type of metal work, you're gonna wanna make sure you don't have your typical framing hammer that's got the waffle face on it. Use one that's smooth. So that way if you are trying to manipulate a little bit of metal or hammer in the nails, you don't end up gouging up and denting the metal all up. Alright, so now we're gonna slip this into there. And I'm probably gonna put some more of this right into here. You really don't ever want to rely strictly on the caulk. Obviously the caulk's there to just kind of be a second line of defense, but the way you lap the materials is the most important, because that's truly what makes everything a watertight connection, is having everything lapping on top of each other to where if water does get behind the wall, it hits this, comes down, it's on top of this, it goes out. This is going to kick it into the gutter. It's running down the wall. This is on a slight angle now, so it's not even vertical, so at least on an angle it's not going to want to try to walk up back the roof that way. It'll come down, hit this corner, go right in the gutter. So that's at least the plan. Like I said, this is always a little bit of a tricky scenario, but it's a very important detail that a lot of people kind of overlook or don't think about. And I promise you, this will be the first place, before any windows or anything else, this will be the first place that you have water intrusion. So, and yeah, when I was trying to trim this out, when the roof piece was already sitting up here, I couldn't get snips in here, I couldn't get anything, so I used my little 3-inch cutoff wheel, and I didn't notice the wheel it touched a couple times here and took the paint off. So I do have some of the gray touch-up paint for this, so once I'm all done I'll go ahead and touch those up, but wasn't too happy that I made that mistake the other day. We can lay our underlayment on top of this, like so, and then we can tuck this in behind our wall here. Just like so. So now we can actually start the roof sheets here. Your steel roofing, you want to hang about 1.5 inches past your drip edge. So you don't want to cut your steel right at the drip edge there. You want to have it hang over, and that way the water falls off the steel and directly into the gutter, and not try to roll back and go up under between the roof steel and the drip edge. So with this one, basically from the peak of the ridge to the face of the drip edge is 70 inches. So we don't really need to add the 1.5 inches. We can cut them at 70 or order them at 70, and we'll slide them down the 1.5 inches. And what that'll do is it'll give you a gap at the top. So if you are going to do a vented ridge, your sheet on each side will be held down 1.5 inches. And if you have the center of your ridge cut out, or if you just have your purlings up there, you can vent your ridge. I'm going to end up, I changed my mind on what I'm doing with this. I'm going to end up spray foaming the roof of this under the roof deck. So I'm not worried about venting the ridge, but I can still have a gap up there because the ridge cap comes about 7 inches down on either side of the ridge. So we're going to cut them at 70. This roof is exactly 9 feet, which should be just 3 sheets. So it should actually work out really well. So once we get up here, I'll show you how we kind of lay it out, where we need a rib at the wall here. And if we didn't have a rib, we'd have to break up the end of the steel. So we can put our sidewall flashing that goes from the wall on top of the roof steel, and then our wall steel goes on top of that flashing. So let's cut some sheets up and get them up here. I had kind of a bunch of leftover material from when I built the barn, and I've been saving it. Ironically enough, these are exactly 140 inches. We needed 70-inch pieces, so it's exactly in the center of these. And we'll make one cut, and we'll get double the pieces for each side. So what I have, whoops, mark 72. So what I have here is 3 sheets stacked on top of each other. The ends are all flushed out. Since that roof's 9 feet long, that means it's going to take 3 sheets to cover each side, because every sheet covers 3 feet from center to center of the ribs. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cut these down the center, all 3 at one time, and we are going to use, there's a bunch of different ways you can cut this metal. You can cut it with a pair of snips, which is a pain, cutting over all the ribs and everything. I have a set of nibblers that work really well, but you're going to only cut 1 sheet at a time that way. Then I have this little circular saw that it's actually made for cutting metal, and it just has a metal cutting blade on it, and it works pretty well. But I think this blade's pretty dull. I was cutting a bunch of 1/4 inch thick 2x2 tubing the other day with it. I mean, it's amazing how these saws can just cut steel nowadays like it's lumber. Like I can cut through a 2x2 piece of not solid steel, but 1/4 inch wall tubing and buzz right through it like I'm cutting through a 2x4. So we'll just cut it with this, set the depth. It does work best to cut these if you are going to use a circular saw. They even make this kind of blade for a full-size circular saw, to cut them upside down, because then you're flat. You're not trying to ride over top of all the ribs, and then usually it doesn't tear up the faces as much that way. So the only thing is make sure you got safety glasses on, because this stuff throws the chips pretty good. that's it. Those 3 sheets at once, no problem, nice and straight. For the sake of being by myself and make it easier, I just threw the sheets up here and just tacked a nail so they don't slide down on me. But basically, the first sheet, the way this roof lays out, the easiest way is going to be just basically butt this end up against the wall of the existing building. That will give us our lip here that we need, that our end wall or sidewall flashing will be on this wall, and it has a kick out, and it'll come over top of this leg here, and we'll secure it here, and that way the water coming down doesn't go up the wall. So you don't want to cut a sheet and have no lip on it going up the wall. If we were to cut this off, we would have to put a bend on the end of this, a break going up the wall to stop the water. We're going to use some of these closure strips on the end here, and that just keeps stuff from being able to go up the ends here, wind and bugs and whatever else. And usually I just put these about, I don't know, a ½ inch up from the drip edge, and I like to mark the 9-inch centers and then stick them right on my marks, because they are pretty stretchy and it's really easy to just go and stick it down and end up overstretching it, and it won't line up with your panels very well that way. So if you mark out your 9 inches, that's what your rib spacing is, center to center, and every rib is 9 inches. So if you go and mark those out, 9, 18, 27, 36, and they got like a little tire groove thing here on the ends. Then you just go and put them on there, because as you can see, if I didn't have those marks, I could easily stretch these things way past where they need to be. So if you go and stick the centers, it's a little different doing it once you already have metal kind of in position. Your shorter end that doesn't have the lip on it, see there's a lip on this end, that goes under, the shorter end goes over. So we're kind of working backwards, but that's fine. We can just not screw this last panel, put these in place, then come back and screw it. So that's not an issue at all. We're just going to use a chunk of 2x4 to get our 1.5-inch overhang established. So you definitely don't have to punch every hole, but when you are going through multiple layers of metal like this and you're trying for the sheet not to move around on you, definitely makes it a little easier just to get a pilot hole started like that through both sheets. You know, we got this, plus we're going through the drip edge. That way it doesn't lift the sheet up when it hits the drip edge, and then, you know, it could shift around. Once you got everything pretty much locked in place and then the field, you can just run right through the steel, no problem. I will tell you that your roof will never be cleaner than the day you put it up. I was so careful trying to keep the roof clean on my barn when I was installing it, and keeping it, you know, blowing the dust off of it and wiping it down. And just one season of pollen and leaves and whatever else is in the air and rain, you know, it just constantly leaves a residue and film on there that never looks as clean as it did when it was first installed. This is the end wall flash that we're going to use. So it goes up the wall behind the siding on the building, and this laps over, goes onto the roof. And it's got a little bit of a lip on it that goes up and over the last rib. And then what we'll do is we'll put a piece of butyl tape on the bottom lip of this before we screw through it, and that'll seal it really well to the roof so water doesn't go up underneath there. And then we'll mark dead center of the ridge, and we'll cut the wall bend, and then we'll fold this over and cut it a few inches over, so that way when we lap them, the two pieces end up lapping over top of the ridge on top of each other. So this is just a thin, it's called butyl tape. It almost always stays kind of gummy and soft. And anytime that you're screwing through one piece of metal into another piece, so this is going on another piece of metal, and you're screwing through both of them, you need to put this between them, because your rubber washer seals the head up here. But if water goes between these two, you got a screw going through two pieces of metal with no rubber or nothing in that hole there. So when you put the butyl tape on there, when you screw through it, that acts as your second rubber washer between the two pieces of metal and seals it up good for you. You can see how that seals up from the wall to the roof here. The sheets will get cut just above that and go on the wall here and be on top of this. So anything that comes down the wall, comes down the sheet, hits this and goes down the roof. And in between this lip and the roof is that butyl tape, and behind this is a rib up here. So even if water did get behind here, it can't go up and over that rib to get up into the wall. So got a few lines of defense before it gets there. And then there's our little kick-out piece. So once that's all attached, water comes down, you can hit that little kick-out and go into the gutter instead of going down onto the wall and causing water to go behind the siding. So we'll do the same thing on this side. We'll have it lap over, and then when our ridge comes in, our ridge cap, we'll butt our ridge cap right up to the wall here, and then have that come down and cover the ridge all the way down. Hey, good morning guys. It's a beautiful sunny day today, And we're back out here. I'm already up on the roof here. Just give you a quick look of how that ridge turned out last night in the dark, kinda. So we got pretty much all the roof panels are in, the ridge is in. You can kind of get a little better view of how the end wall flashing works and goes up the wall here, how we lapped them over each other, and then the ridge cap went over top of that. Underneath it I put a real heavy bead of the through the roof sealant, and I did a small bead on top of it as well. So now we're gonna continue these wall panels across here. So the next one is gonna start there obviously, but it's gonna go past this ridge, so it's actually gonna have a cut going up and then a small cut coming back down because it stops somewhere in this area here. I'll show you guys how we measure that up and lay it out, get it cut and put it up here. Hey guys, I'm actually in the middle of editing the video that you're currently watching, and looking at it, I'm already at the 40-something minute mark, and I have quite a few clips left before the outro that I had filmed would have taken place. I'm trying to shorten these videos up a little bit. I feel like you know, hour-long videos are just a little too much for most people, so I'm going to try to keep them, you know, 30 to 40 minutes. So this is where I'm going to cut this one off. I hope you enjoyed what you saw so far. I should be able to get another one up here a lot quicker, considering I have most of it filmed already. If you like what you saw, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you could, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks, guys.